Senator Mark Kelly recently spoke to Lauffer's Future City students. Mark Kelly is one of Arizona's senators, and he works in Washington, D.C. Senator Kelly is also a former astronaut. He has traveled on 4 missions to space and has served as commander on 2 of those missions. Our Future City students have designed sustainable lunar cities. Senator Kelly gave them some tips on how to successfully create a city on the moon, what challenges they would face, and gave students some insight on what it's like to go to space. Let's take a look at some of the things he said.
All right, show me what you got.
And then here we have some agriculture buildings, so it's easier to access inside the homes.
Where do you grow your food? Is it a plan to grow the food?
Oh yeah, right here we have the building is the main building for agriculture.
Our processors help us get it, so then we're able to use it as like rocket fuel for long expeditions or as power.
And how do you take the helium-3, the tritium, and create power out of it? What's that plan?
So we basically heat up the regolith to 600 degrees, and then because of that, it'll release the helium-3, and then we'll be able to use it for energy or anything else, or trading or things like that.
Are you going to use it in a fusion reactor? Is that the plan?
Yeah.
Okay. If we were able to create a sustainable fusion reaction on Earth, and there are companies that are trying to do this, that one of the logical fuels is helium-3, and we don't have a lot of helium-3 on Earth, but there's a lot in that lunar regolith that can be mined. So, once you get to the point where you can mine it, and if we had fusion reactors and we had them small enough, somewhere down the road in the future, we could actually have a self-sustaining, unlimited energy supply on the surface of the moon or Mars, for that matter. Once batteries become dense enough and efficient enough, that then things like solar and wind power become overwhelmingly the logical choice for energy, because now you can store it.
Yeah, and we have those kinds of storage plants inside the city to help distribute it, kind of, in a way, throughout the city.
The first person to grow food in space and eat it was my twin brother. On the space station, he grew some lettuce, and then they had a little bit of it for dinner one night. But on the surface of the moon, we would probably just grow some things initially if we had the ability to do it at all, especially in the beginning of any kind of lunar base or extended stay on either the moon or Mars. What we would have to do is we'd have to transport the food there and back. I imagine when we get to the point where we're having people live on the surface of the moon for an extended period of time, we're going to see spacecraft delivering, supplies there. So make sure you have a robust capability to receive, spacecraft landing at your lunar base.
Yeah. Especially when learning about this challenge, we learned there are a lot of factors that go into creating a successful base on the moon. So it's kind of hard to tell when. We're hoping sometime in the near future, because it would be cool to live on the moon. But a sustainable moon base that actually is like a city in today's time wouldn't be till probably a little bit.
We'll send the first woman to the moon here on whatever the next trip is, which would be pretty great. Often the limiting factor is not always rocket science. Sometimes it's political science. That we've got to get the politics right, and we've got to get the national will to do something. And then we've got to get the leadership in the federal government to move a program along. I would say if we had all that stuff in place, we could probably do it in in 10 years from now. The reason I say that is even though we've had this plan and this program called Artemis, it hasn't been funded at the level that it needs. You know, if it's not 10 years and it winds up being 15 or 20 years, one of you could be the first, you know, one of the first people to go back to the moon. That is definitely a possibility. I could see, you know, somebody being on a mission like that that's in their early 30s. One of the crew members. You probably have a more experienced person who could be in their 40s or even in their 50s. Or maybe in 20 years I could go back and I'd be in my 70s.
So one question is, are there other kinds of solid foods we can eat in space other than plants?
I've had all kinds of food in space. I mean, shrimp cocktail and, you know, barbecue beef and any kind of vegetable you can imagine. Most of it's freeze dried on the space shuttle. And the reason why we freeze dry the food is we take all the water out on Earth because the water is heavy. So we dehydrate all of our food. If you're going to ship food to the surface of the moon, you'd probably do the same thing and then use the water on the moon to rehydrate the food. You know what one of the fun parts of going into space is launching in a rocket ship. That's like nothing else on Earth. I mean, it's really kind of incredible to climb into a, you know, this the space shuttle in my case, which is a great spaceship. It's a pretty decent rocket ship. It's not the best airplane in the world, but to climb in and get strapped into your seat and then eventually when the clock gets to zero, get hit with 7.5 million pounds of thrust on your back. We accelerate from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour in about 8.5 minutes. Now that won't get you to the moon though. To get to the moon, you got to go even faster than that. Oh, quadratic, like a quadratic equation.
Yeah.
So something with something that, you know, has a square root in it, like the quadratic equation, which you use to solve a quadratic. To solve a quadratic is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So write that down. That's what you're going to use to solve your quadratic equation, which is something that has an x squared, an x, and a regular, just a number in it. Okay, you guys got that? All right, so your teacher should give you all extra credit because you found the answer.
Thank you for visiting our Sunnyside classroom, and thank you for the little math lesson, and we learned a lot about space. Thank you very much. This was lovely.
Thank you, guys. See ya.